Our mission is to help teachers engage all of their students every day. You know, a sitcom version of a classroom has bored kids in it because we just have this idea that it's okay for all of our children to be bored for 18 years. And so what we hope is to change that so that everybody is engaged all the time and we're not just leaving people out. I mean, literally for 12 years, someone can sit and not engage.
Iowa City tech company Pear is creating an interactive way for teachers to deliver lessons. CEO Riley Einan-Lynch, once a computer programmer at Microsoft, came to Iowa to be a teacher at Scattergood Friends School, a boarding school in West Branch, Iowa.
This isn't a place where we know everything and jam that information into your head. This is a place where we come together, we learn things, everybody learns together, and takes care of each other. As a teacher, as a new teacher, I kept finding a lot of new problems that I didn't know about. Teaching is really hard all by itself, and there are all these problems that I think because I was a computer programmer first, I was naturally drawn to, like, I could automate this and then have 2 more hours to spend with my students. So I started building little, Excel plugins, and I built a little adventure for some of my math students who kept feeling unmotivated by learning formulas, but thought they would be more interested in solving a problem in sort of a video game format.
Riley met his future wife, Michael, at Scattergood. She has long been driven by a family history in education that includes great aunts in Wisconsin that ran a boarding school on the family farm.
When I was looking to where I might want to teach, looking at a sort of traditional public school wasn't entirely appealing to me because of those reasons, where students are just moving around from different teachers all day long. And when I looked at Scattergood, I saw that same kind of community being built. I wanted to have a much fuller picture of who my students were.
While working at Scattergood, a professional development group encouraged Riley and Michael to give more consistent feedback to their students.
Grades, as they are now in a lot of schools, are built to help schools sort students and understand what class they should go to and tell colleges which students are the best. But they're not designed to tell students what they could do to improve. And they start, you start at an A and then you sort of fail down. But really learning, everybody starts at 0 and grows up, right? Like everybody starts not knowing algebra, but normal grades sort of make you feel slowly like you're learning less algebra.
I mean, everyone in the group started implementing this kind of assessment and feedback into their own classes, and we were all kind of doing it a little bit differently and had our own spreadsheets for tracking it. He kind of suddenly realized that, hey, I'm a computer programmer, I could probably build something better than this.
That was when we started thinking that, with our combined skills and expertise of computers and teaching, that we would be able to make a successful product out of that. So that was the first leap.
They both quit teaching, married, and with Riley's computer programming expertise and Michael's passion for education, began creating a program for teachers from their home in Iowa City in 2010.
We were really naive about business, and we were like, well, you're the programmer, you're gonna build it, and that's what there is to do, basically. So I was gonna focus on other things. But to Riley's credit, he really knew that anything he built wouldn't be super attractive. So he fairly quickly went looking for a designer. And Dan came on in just a part-time. He was just going to do some work, and that was going to be the end of it. But he also had sort of an entrepreneurial bug.
I wanted to strike out on my own a little bit. My parents are both entrepreneurs. But when Riley approached me with the idea for this first product, Active Grade, I saw in him kind of a good partner to work on that product and create that product, and decided to work in the evenings and on the weekends and that sort of thing to try and find a product market fit.
So I sort of believed going into Active Grade that if you build it, they'll come. And it turned out not to be true at all for us. We made a great product that the people that used it loved, but we didn't know about marketing or sales, managing a budget, or all those things were not things that we knew.
With the company lacking those key skills, it was Michael that took a larger role in testing what this product could become.
So Dan and I were always super focused on the product and didn't have any time to think strategically about marketing, like I was talking about, or also the business stuff. So it was Michael that got us on the track to raise a little bit of money for that company, and she handled all of the, not only paperwork, but learning what we needed to be doing. And so it's because of her that we developed a business plan a year into the business.
We won a competition and we brought on some small investment, and that's what made it possible for us all to really take the full-time leap. So that was a kind of first step of we're doing it. We made it. We were getting customers. I don't think we didn't get to a point where we really understood sales and marketing and really had that.
We got to a point where the grading part was pretty much done. Students were feeling empowered, teachers were feeling like it was pretty great. We were at a point where to get more broad usage, we needed to integrate with student information systems and provide tools for administrators. Our main focus was accomplished, and we were going to have to become more of a business, but we didn't quite have the amazing popularity to support that. We were approached by a company that saw the value of the product that we had made and understood the value of us as honest educators that actually understood what we were building and were doing that with integrity.
A larger player in the education field, Haiku Learning, acquired Active Grade and had Riley, Michael, and Dan work for 1 year to integrate their software into Haiku's system.
It was gratifying to know we had created a very useful tool, and it was going to be implemented in a much broader way with this acquisition.
When their year of work was complete, Riley, Michael, and Dan realized another issue in education they wanted to solve.
Teachers want to interact with students individually and make the classroom a place where everyone's involved. But when you have 20 or 30 or 40 students, you can't call on all of them. And if you did, the whole class would be over in literally one question. If you let everybody talk for 1 minute, that would be the class. And so there's this impossible imbalance where the teacher can't really include students. Actually, in 2012, while selling Active Grade, we wanted to make an interactive presentation to a bunch of the people considering buying the company. That was probably the first prototype.
They were giving us responses and input to use and share with the rest of the room. The entire conversation, the entire presentation felt a lot more engaging. And we saw that, okay, this sort of real-time interactive layer on top of a presentation in a classroom, there's something there to make a really cool product out of this.
So when we started thinking about a second company and looking back on what was good or not good about Active Grade, one thing that stood out about the product was, in order for someone to start using Active Grade, they not only had to learn how to use the tool, but in addition, most people also had to completely change the way that they were grading. We realized that if we really wanted to reach a lot of teachers and a lot of students, we needed to not ask them to go from here to here. We needed to start with something that people could adopt more easily.
I made a quick prototype. We were stuck in an airport, put it on my blog, and 5,000 teachers started using it, even though it was the worst program that I've ever showed anybody. So at that point, it started to feel like, oh, this is another one of these problems where teachers feel like they can't do quite what they want, and they're really eager for something to help them.
Their new company and program was Pear. Riley, Michael, and Dan added a business partner, Anthony Showalter, who complemented what they needed to take Pear to a higher level.
With Pear, the big thing we took in was to build a business first and not just a product. That's the main reason we wanted Anthony on board. Between Riley, Michael, and I, we had really solid understanding of the classroom, really solid understanding of how to build products, but only 2-year run at trying to build a business. And Anthony brought a lot of that to our team.
On the product side, we learned that simple is better almost always, especially if you integrate with somebody else that's complicated. Then the people who want to do complicated things can do it through them, and you don't have to confuse your users with that. On a business level, we learned about marketing and sales being as important as they are. Especially education is kind of weird because we're making a product for teachers, but it's the principal who decides to buy it. And so we knew from the start we needed a way for teachers to show their principals how big an impact Pear Deck makes.
We mocked up a prototype and sold that to 12 schools before we spent any more time on building the actual product itself. We wanted to see if schools would buy the idea we were selling, and they did. And it gave us the confidence to say, okay, we can put 3 months into building a good version of this for these schools that we sold it to and see how it goes from there.
Having the ability to recognize what they needed to grow Pear Deck has helped these entrepreneurs engage more customers. And just like the classrooms that use their product to involve more students, it's been the involvement of all the founders that makes it work.
I have some entrepreneur friends who have really been the sole founder, and honestly, I don't know how that works. I don't know how they do it. Like, even starting with 4 people, there was always so much to do, and we never felt like we had enough people. And if I was imagining trying to do all of that as one person, I can't imagine.
Entrepreneur is a means to help these kids. If there was some other way for me to do that in the equal way, I think I would be happy enough not to have the responsibilities. But it is really fun and interesting to have a business, and really getting a lot of reward from the team that has joined with me and us. The community forming here as a business has also been really important and rewarding to me.
I hope we continue to grow beyond our core product and that we have other services or products that we offer. But I hope no matter like how big our suite is, that if someone hears Pear Deck, they think, oh, that company like really understands teachers and is delivering services that make it easier for teachers to connect with their students and do the best thing for their students. If that's what people think, I'll be happy.
I think basically it's the risk. Doing something that people tell you that, why would you do that, or that's not going to work. I think you have to be pretty self-motivated, and I think you have to be pretty sure of yourself to step out on that limb and say, this is what I'm going to do.
Some entrepreneurs begin with little more than the determination to provide the very best product or service they can. Gomaco, short for Godberson Manufacturing Company, manufactures bridge building and concrete pouring equipment from the small western Iowa community of Ida Grove. The machines built at their facility are used to lay the foundation of infrastructure all over the world. The company's founders, Harold Godberson and his son Gary, ran their own businesses long before Gomaco. Harold took his first business risk by starting a construction company with a single project in 1941, building a house in Ida Grove.
Back when Harold first started, he made a commitment that he was going to get in this field of work, and I don't know if he had more than a shovel and a wheelbarrow. He didn't have any money. Godberson Smith Construction was kind of born out of that, and ever since then they've been a mainstay of building bridges, box culverts, roads, infrastructure projects around Iowa and some parts of the Midwest.
I remember when I was growing up as a builder. I mean, he would come in and he'd have his work boots on and he'd be just done with the concrete pour, and he built his own house. There was always people stopping by. He always had something going on.
While Harold ran the construction company, his son Gary got his start in entrepreneurship after college.
Kind of followed his father's footsteps, started his own construction company, moved to Minnesota where he was building bridges and box culverts up in Minnesota.
Harold was pretty tough, I think, on Dad when growing up, because Dad ran his own bridge crew right out of college. And so those two actually ran separate bridge crews right before kind of Gomaco got started there.
I think Harold snuck up there to Minnesota and took a job from him and didn't please my dad too much, so he ended up coming down to Ida Grove and actually took a bridge job here in Ida Grove and kind of Harold's back door. So there was always a little friendly competition going back and forth between the two.
The two continued to compete until Harold had a contract to build a bridge that required a piece of equipment he didn't own. He was forced to rent a machine-run double oscillating screed.
Double oscillating screed is basically two boards that move back and forth in opposition to each other, and that would basically create a closing surface for the concrete. So it would smooth out the concrete in front of it and provide a flat surface for the bridge.
He rented one and thought the rent was too high, so he ended up actually going back over the winter and designing one himself and built one himself.
In 1961, Harold and his wife Leone asked Gary to come back home with his wife Sharon. Together, Harold and Gary tweaked the product design.
Yeah, he came back and was helping with the design work, doing the drawings. And actually, when my father and mother came back to Iowa for the winter, basically, to help with getting the drawings done and the kind of the engineering work done, he didn't go back, in essence, because they he ended up staying in Ida Grove and helping basically start Gomaco Corporation.
A lot of it started with we've got the winters, what are we doing with the people during the winter? And they use those winters to kind of build up equipment for the spring.
That winter, Harold and Gary designed a more efficient style of screed, which opened doors to many area construction projects. Their innovative process soon impressed other contractors and state inspectors.
So everything was very manually intensive in the past, and they were coming up with ways to really speed up this process. And in doing so, you had a better product. So it was a win-win.
So in all these ways of doing it were pretty new. So there was a big education component of it that had to be done. So you had to convince not only the customers, but also some state DOT personnel. So we're doing a lot of demonstration projects. There was a lot of convincing of consumers that you could actually do a slip form process more economically than you could do it by hand. So he kind of led that charge and was going around to all these different states and basically introducing the new technology and the benefits of it.
As their initial design took off, Harold created prototypes for future products aimed at improving the efficiency of other concrete laying processes.
Every year they were developing something new and something different, and it became very, very quick growth on that end of it there. So it went from the finishers and then the curb and gutter machines and then the small pavers and the big pavers, and every year they would design something new for the market there, sometimes 2 or 3 new machines for the market. So it's a real aggressive, quick expansion in the product range.
Harold and Gary were very different. Harold, like I say, was much more mechanically inclined, much more of a designer, tinkerer. Gary was much more in tune to, hey, if that works well, we can sell a whole bunch of them. And all in all, it was probably a really good combination.
In an effort to grow the company, Gary had to convince his strong-willed father to expand Gomaco's distribution into new markets. Gary's ambitions posed a huge risk for the family company.
There were some very intense arguments between Harold and Gary at times, and usually it delved on how much money we were going to spend to do this and how much money we were going to spend to do this, and promoting the product, and Harold kept Gary grounded to a certain degree, and Gary was pulling Harold along to a certain degree as well.
He always thought we needed to be a worldwide company, and it wasn't just necessarily just to do it. It was, he felt that if you're going to be in the industry, you need to be worldwide. Now, our type of manufacturers are based in the United States because that is the biggest market.
Gary's dream of enlarging the company and going to these faraway lands originally was with a lot of resentment from Harold, because he didn't think that we needed to travel too much further than outside the Midwest. But Gary had a different vision.
Contractors are contractors, they all have the same problems, but in a lot of countries, they just do things altogether different. So you can either say, okay, we're going to sell you the equipment as we make it over here in the States, and just keep butting your head up against the wall on that, or you can say, well, what do you really need, and we'll just make it the way you want it. Fortunately, early on, that's typically what they, that's the approach they did, is what do you really need, and we'll make it to what you want. Now, it's time extensive, costly, and initially it's very, very expensive, not profitable. But as time goes along, you build up your presence and you build up that relationship with the customer. And you get a lot of return buyers. Everything else you can work through. As long as they're happy with the equipment, the languages, the currency, the dealerships, all those other things fall in line if they're just giving them what they want as far as equipment.
Gary's international push paid off. Currently, Gomaco employs 360 people in a town of only 2,000. And due to a long history of innovation, Gomaco products are used to solve infrastructure problems around the world.
100-foot wide canal paver that we paved half width underwater. That was a special project that came to us from a customer who helped us in developing it and their needs, but it was a collaboration effort and a tight time frame. But so you sit back and you look at it and you get this request from this customer about doing this crazy paving canal underwater, and you're, okay, well, if you're willing to try it, we'll try it. So, and that's kind of the projects that we do. And so it led from the early days where we're doing small and taking small machines and changing them to now we take some of our largest pavers that are in the world and we modify them to different applications, whether it be canal, airport, highways.
Well, they really don't run the company from a financial aspect. It's more geared around how do we develop equipment and how do we make this stuff specifically for contractors, and how do we supply it in a time frame they want. And then the financial part kind of follows from that, but it's not started the other way. We need to meet these financial goals and we need to do this and this. So a lot of the stuff at the time would appear pretty I wouldn't say risky, but the margins just don't look at it at the beginning of the project, but they would do it anyway just because it made sense. And it would lead to something, or it would lead to whole new machines or models or attachments. So it all worked out in the end, but at the time, if you're a public company, some of this stuff just isn't going to get done.
It's gratifying the fact that the customer is using your product in a new, innovative way. And they're basically doing it because they know they can make money by doing this innovative way. And a lot of times those special applications that are special today peeping their way in to be the normal machine, and it's not a special anymore, it just becomes standard operating procedure for us and for many contractors. But it takes the first guy to come out and say, hey, I got this crazy idea. And someone willing to listen to him and say, yeah, I believe in you, I think we can do that.